Welcome back here on Live Now from Fox, 9:15 on the East Coast and 6:15 on the West Coast. The war in the Middle East was one of many topics discussed during last night's presidential debate, and this morning we're getting some new information from the Israeli military stating that 1 in 6 of the rockets fired by the Hezbollah terror group has actually misfired and landed inside Lebanon. That amounts to nearly 1,000 rockets. Israel released the new data as the attacks by Hezbollah do intensify, with many world leaders concerned over a further escalation and eventually a full-scale war. I do want to talk about the latest developments there in the Middle East, so let's bring in Dr. Asaf Romirowsky, the Executive Director of Scholars for Peace in the Middle East. Thank you so much for taking the time, as always, to be here with us.
Thank you, as always, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, so first off, I do want to ask you about the new details there released by the IDF. 1 in 6 of the rockets fired by Hezbollah landing within Lebanon. What does that say to you overall?
Well, I mean, I think that the Hezbollah is testing the waters, for starters. They may be throwing stuff just to kind of see the reaction on the Israeli part. Clearly, they have old stockpiles of missiles that are being thrown around, and that obviously, it shows that their capability is limited. That being said, we should not underestimate them. I mean, if you're looking exactly at what Hezbollah has in its stockpile, this is not Hamas. Hamas had about 30,000 long-range missiles. Hezbollah has between 150 and 170,000, and they have long-range missiles that have also guidance capabilities. So we should never underestimate what Hezbollah is going to do. And Hezbollah is this northern front is seriously represents an escalation and also a real danger for Israelis. We have yet to see, and this is again a concern that we're going to look at going forward, any kind of boots on the ground on the northern side. So far, the Israelis have been using the Israeli Air Force as they've done over the years. But this is something that we should be watching very, very carefully. Israel has already had to relocate populations from the north. Hezbollah may have had a few mistakes along the way, but we should not take this as a sign that they are not serious about their capabilities, because the other week, we also saw rockets able to hit Tiberias. Inside of Israel, and they're also hitting the radar center near Tzfat. So they actually can proven that they can actually hit strategic targets inside of Israel that represent a significant danger and a threat.
And we have heard from Israeli officials that there does exist a 3-mile dead zone, is what it's being called, there in Lebanon, as a result of the Israeli retaliation, the retaliatory strikes against Hezbollah. What is that dead zone, and what does that tell you? Does it give an indication as to what could happen to Lebanon if there is a full-scale war?
Look, the argument has been by the Israelis, and this is what they've been trying to put pressure on, is to push Hezbollah back behind the Litani River. Hezbollah has been edging all along in tandem as the war in the south has been continuing. And so these are always have been red lines that are consistently been broken by Nasrallah and Hezbollah terrorists in the area, and they're pushing it as far as they can to see when are the Israelis going to be engaged in this full-blown out war. Let's not forget, of course, that Hezbollah is a direct proxy of the Islamic Republic of Iran. After the Iranians clearly attacked with ICBMs in April, Hezbollah is continuing that war on the ground itself with conventional weaponry. And so every time they make these points, they're trying to make the case that the war is going to continue. They want this war in the same way that Hamas wants its war. And there is a constant, as we have spoken over the past few months, an ongoing coordination sponsored and financed by the Iranians. Iranian footprints are all over this, and so they are continuously pushing this as far as they can with the same goal of killing Americans, killing Israelis, killing Westerners, killing Christians. I mean, that is their objective all around here.
American intelligence now saying that in the coming weeks, there is likely to be a, quote, major escalation between Israel and Hezbollah. Again, a lot of these are hypotheticals that we're discussing just based on expertise. But what exactly would that look like if there was a major escalation?
So let's put it into the historical context. In the Second Lebanon War in 2006 that Israel fought, Israel was there for about 50 days. They didn't complete the job. In 2015, after the JCPOA, much of the money that went to Iran went directly to Hezbollah. For Hezbollah, it's never been a question of, if to have a war. It's a question of when to have a war. And that has to do with the fact whether or not they have the finances, the capabilities to make this happen, and the financial incentive to make this happen has been coming directly out of Iran. The targets that the Israelis have been targeting that have been Iranian leaders in Lebanon, in Syria, have been threats to Israel. A full-scale war, and the Israelis know what this looks like based on historical experience, could look like a Lebanon of 82, could look like a Lebanon of 2006, though I think we're going in a much more escalated volume here because the greater threat is, and has always been the greater threat to the area, has been the nuclear threat. Now, that represents the larger threat that Iran represents of the region at large. But of course, the concern is Iran arming with nuclear capabilities or with EMPs, any kind of capabilities that would basically threaten the existence of the state of Israel. And that's the concern the Israelis have had, which is why you're seeing them going in, targeting these targets, these leaders, these bases, these stockpiles. They're all trying to deter an actual full-blown out war. The only difference is going to be that in contrast to what we've seen in the South, Hezbollah is located in Lebanon. Lebanon is an actual state, which represents a little bit of a different constellation that Israel is going to go into Lebanon, albeit a kind of a weak state, but you're also talking about engaging between Lebanon and Syria, which is going to also involve a whole other set of problems for the Israelis when they're dealing with issues of warfare in areas that represent a state actor.
The U.S. has now joined in on the countries who are urging their citizens to leave Lebanon ahead of a possible war. There are many countries that are doing the same, and they're also warning against travel to Lebanon. Do you think there's ever a time where these countries, including the U.S., would actually go into Lebanon to physically remove their citizens prior to a war?
That's hard to see. I mean, what we have at this point is we have the fleet is in the area. We have aircraft carriers. I mean, I think that everything that we've sent to the region from the U.S. perspective is to deter the Iranians and deter exactly this very activity that we've seen now as a result of the ongoing war. Clearly, it does not deter the Iranians or their proxies, namely Hezbollah or the Houthis. They are continuing on their objectives. And so I think that if there's going to be any kind of evacuations, we may see similar evacuations based on past experiences like we saw in Afghanistan, which was a disaster for that matter. But I think the bigger concern, especially after last night's display during the debate, was about the strength of the United States and deterrence as it relates to decision-making processes happening in the United States. And that's been a concern all along. And American adversaries are watching and they are testing the waters. And that's really a major concern that everybody's watching in the region at large. And the Israelis are going to come to a conclusion that they may have no choice, but as they've done with Hamas, are going to have to go at it as always, potentially on their own, while they're seeking other kind of support in the area itself. The only hope that they have is, of course, what we saw during April, is that when you see Iran representing the greatest destabilizing factor in the region, can they find other Arab partners, namely Saudis, Jordanians, and others who are concerned about the growing threat of the Islamic Republic of Iran and its nuclear threat at large?
Any surprise that the war in Gaza and really the mention of Hezbollah as well were part of the debate last night, but weren't talked about even more? Is that surprising considering how much this has been discussed among American people?
I think it is surprising. I mean, I think obviously, there is a tension between what American voters go to the poll with, whether domestic issues when it comes to the cost of living and medical, coverages and the, paying for gas prices and whatnot. That being said, I think that these are real concerns. The border threats are exactly bringing in the kind of ideologies and represent a national security threat. National security threats are a real concern during this election as a result of what's happening in the Middle East, and it is exactly seeped into American politics. My own personal viewpoint that I would have liked to see more discussion about those real issues because they are impacting Americans all over the place, and to understand how much of a threat they are should be on everybody's minds going forward. Not only between now and November, but also beyond, given the fact that these enemies of the United States, they really mean what they say, and we should take their threats extremely seriously.
All right. Dr. Asaf Romirowsky, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. Is there anything else you want to add about any of this before I let you go?
I'm good for now. Thank you so much, as always.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day.
You too.